Welcome to Retiring Well, where it's our job to help you enjoy financial security in any economy. We have got a terrific show lined up for you this week. We are going to talk about who's looking out for your best interests. This is super important information. But of course, as we always do, before we jump into the show, I want to introduce you to the real star of the show and your retirement planning specialist.
And in Birmingham, this is Tad Hill, your chartered retirement planning counselor and retirement planning specialist.
Retiring Well with Michael Reese, providing financial security in any economy. Today is the day you can take control of your financial future and eliminate worrying about your money forever. Featuring chartered retirement planning counselor Tad Hill, founder of Freedom Financial Group in Birmingham.
This week we're talking about who's looking out for your best interests. You know, I have this great article from Investment News in my hands, and it's titled, SIFMA to SEC, Fiduciary Rule Would Cost a Ton. Who is SIFMA, and by the way, who's the SEC? Some of you might not know. And what are they talking about with a fiduciary rule? Well, here's what happened. Remember back in 2008, we had the whole financial fiasco, and there was a bill that became law called the Dodd-Frank bill. And basically what it did, it did a lot of things, but part of what it did was it said that we need the SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission, to create a rule where anyone who manages money for people has to comply to a fiduciary rule, and that means it's a rule in which they need to look out for your best interests. Now, I know this seems a little odd. Shouldn't everyone who manages your money be required to look out for your best interests? Well, apparently not. This is being fought tooth and nail by the big Wall Street firms. You know, the Merrill Lynches and Morgan Stanley Smith Barney, Wells Fargo, Edward Jones. These companies are fighting that rule tooth and nail. Well, in Investment News, the article I just talked about, SIFMA, S-I-F-M-A, stands for, let's see if I can get it here. It basically stands for the Securities Industry and Financial Markets Association. It's basically a trade organization for smaller independent financial firms. And they wrote a letter to the SEC saying, hey, if you do this to us, it's going to cost us millions of dollars a year just in compliance. Now think about that for a minute. Millions of dollars a year just to make their systems be set up to look out for your best interests. Are you kidding me? Why aren't they set up to look for your best interest already? They are so out of whack that it's costing them millions every year to fix how out of whack they are. Is that who you want managing your money? I don't think so. By the way, in a related article, this one now is a couple years old, but Smart Money, back when it was a magazine, now it's all online, but they had an article that said, is your advisor still right for your retirement? And in this article, they talk about a lot of the same things, about how you want to work with a fiduciary, someone who is required to look out for your best interest first, foremost, and always, versus working with someone who isn't required to do that. In addition to that, in this article, they're talking about how retirement planning is just its own ballgame. It's so much more complicated, so much more complex than just growing a portfolio that many times you need to change investment advisors when you're getting close to retirement, when you're nearing retirement, and then when you enter into retirement. In this article, basically they're saying if you're within 10 years of retirement, you should be strongly considering changing investment advisors if you don't already have one who specializes in retirement planning. So here we have Wall Street saying, I don't want to be a fiduciary, I don't want to look out for your best interests. Smart Money saying, hey, when you're nearing retirement, you don't want to be dealing with those guys anyway. Really important topics. You want to make sure that you have the right person looking out for your best interests. Now, I want to throw it over to the real stars of the show, the retirement planning specialists. They're going to talk about how this applies to people just like you in your neighborhood.
And now, featuring Chartered Retirement Planning Counselor Tad Hill.
Well, folks, if you don't live and work in our industry, this whole conversation is probably foreign to you. You probably aren't aware of the fact that people in my industry are actually held to two different standards. One is the fiduciary standard that Mike talks about, which is essentially saying that we are required to do what's in your best interest, and we've got to prove that we've done that. The other is the suitability standard, which means that the investments that are chosen have to be suitable for you, which essentially means they fall within your risk tolerance range. Now, there are, as you may imagine, there are nuances to this, there are particulars to the way these things get enacted, but the important thing for you to understand from a public perspective and as someone that's working with people in our industry is that there are two very distinct, different criteria that we are held to in our industry. So I really encourage you to make sure that you're working with somebody that has a fiduciary duty to you. Now, Mike talked about the battles that have gone on after all the fiasco of 2008, where the SEC and Congress really wants to enforce a uniform fiduciary standard. That has been being fought by a lot of large corporations and all of their lobbying dollars. And at this point, there still isn't one. So at this point, we are able to actually give advice to folks in our industry. When I say we, I mean anybody in our industry. There are those two different standards that you're held to. Now, if you're going to hold yourself to a fiduciary standard, it's really a choice that you make, and it's based upon the license that you hold. So one of the things that I talk regularly about here on the television show, on my radio show, The Financial Safari, which you can hear on WERC and API on Saturdays, is the fact that there are these two standards, and you need to be very aware of this. So I really encourage you to have a conversation with whoever you're working with. Make sure that they have a fiduciary duty to you, and if not, ask why not. You know, it's one thing to say you're going to do what's in people's best interest, but to sign up for that and to hold yourself accountable to that, that's a big deal in my opinion. And as you may imagine, there's a lot of extra liability that goes along with it for folks in our position. So it's a much higher standard that gets set, and it's a higher standard that we have to adhere to. So when we do retirement planning, for example, one of the ways that I ensure that we're giving advice that's in your best interest is to make sure we're really spending time on the front end diagnosing exactly what's going on in your life and all the things that you'll be facing before we start making investment decisions. If that's the kind of process that sounds appealing to you, give the number on the screen a call, and I'll set aside time on my calendar to sit down with you and help you understand these things at a deeper level. But buyer beware. Make sure that you're working with somebody that has a fiduciary duty to you and is willing to hold themselves to that standard.
Great advice from the retirement planning specialist. Now, folks, remember, if you've got a question about your retirement planning, whether it's income planning, taxes, your retirement plans, whatever you have, call the number on the screen. Talk to your retirement planning specialist. You'd be glad you did. All right, it's now trivia time. This week's trivia question has to do with spending habits at different points in your life. And here's the question. At what age range do you spend the most money, Americans in general? $57,788 per year is at age 25 through 34, 35 through 44, 45 through 54, or 55 through 64. Stay tuned. We're going to give you the answer at the end of the show. Hi, my name's Michael Reese. I'm a certified financial planner who specializes in retirement planning. And for the last 18 years, I've been helping my clients enjoy financial security during their retirement years. And one of the hottest financial tools out there right now for retirement planning are annuities, but they're also the most misunderstood. And it's really no surprise why things are so confusing, because both the insurance companies and the financial media do such a poor job explaining what annuities are and when they should best be used. That's why I've created a series of videos absolutely free that you can watch in the comfort of your own home to teach you what annuities are and how they work.
Visit www.makingannuitiessimple.com today for a free video series with TV host and retirement planning strategist Michael Reese. Let's talk about a customized retirement plan. Retiring today is not what it used to be. What works for your neighbor may not be best for you. Yet everywhere you turn, it seems like financial firms are giving cookie-cutter advice.
Your circumstances are different than anyone else's. As a chartered retirement planning counselor, my Retirement Roadmap Review is designed to uncover the must-know facts for your situation before we start implementing solutions.
It's one more reason that now, more than ever, you need to talk to a retirement planning specialist. Why not call the number on your screen right now? We'd love to talk to you about protecting your retirement.
Welcome back. It's time for our question of the week.
This week's question comes from David in Suttons Bay, Michigan. I'm looking into getting life insurance to pay off my mortgage if I die. I'm 63 years old, in decent health. What is the best type of insurance to get? Term, whole life, or something else?
You know, this is a great question, and one of the things that I want to make our viewers aware of is my opinion of debt, particularly in retirement. I am a big fan of getting your debt paid off. So if you don't have your mortgage paid for, and particularly if you're currently earning a salary and you're worried about your spouse being able to make ends meet if something should happen to you, then having life insurance in place with enough of a death benefit to pay off the mortgage, that's a very, very good idea. So I applaud you for thinking of that. Now, we want to understand what's the best way to do this. So one of the things that I would sit down and figure out is, how long is it until the mortgage gets paid off anyway? You said you're 63, so you may have had this mortgage for 15 or 20 years, and we're 10 years away from getting it paid off. In that case, I wouldn't hesitate to use something like a 10-year term or a 15-year term policy, because the rates, the premiums that you'll pay are going to be a lot lower. Now, if you don't plan on getting the house paid off, or you just refinance and it's a 30-year mortgage, or the balance is really big, and we can't have a short term like that to know that we're going to get the problem solved, then in my opinion, we should have some kind of permanent life insurance in place for this. Because what we would hate to have happen is for you to buy term insurance, and then the term insurance runs out right before you pass away and we don't have the mortgage paid off. So at that point, you've got to get some type of permanent insurance, cash value life insurance that's designed to be in place for as long as you're living, so that we know no matter when that unfortunate day comes, we've got this life insurance in place that's designed to take care of that. You know, there are a lot of other good uses for life insurance. Legacy planning is a big one. Making sure that we're replacing income, even if it's not salary. It might be replacing a Social Security or part of a pension. Because in retirement planning, we have to understand that once you pass away, there are sources of income we're going to be losing, like Social Security. And if you don't have 100% spousal on your pension, maybe part of your pension. So a lot of good uses for life insurance, but certainly getting the mortgage paid off is one of them. And I hope this discussion has been helpful.
Do you want your question answered on Retiring Well? Send us an email to question@retiringwell.tv.
This week in Chalk Talk, we want to share this concept known as the Rule of 100, how it really works. And I want to dive into just a few details to make sure that you're applying it properly. So first, what is the rule of 100? So rule of 100. It's very simple. And by the way, I'm just so excited. If you've been watching the show for a while, you know I've been using a whiteboard. I've got myself a real old-fashioned chalkboard. I love this. This is great. So anyway, the rule 100 basically states as follows. You take your age. Take your age. And you are going to subtract it from 100. So 100 minus your age gives you some number. All right, so let's use an example. Let's go with 48 years old. So let's say I'm 48. If you take 100 minus 48, what do you get? You get 52. Now, what does that mean? How do we use that with investing with our portfolios? Well, it's simple as this. What you do is you take the portion that represents your age, 48. That is the percentage of my portfolio that I should have in low risk types of accounts. So this is going to be my safe money. The 52 is my risk money. So what's safe and what's risk? Well, it's as simple as this. Safe means exactly that. It means that your money is protected, right? That's what it means. Risk means, of course, you have I'm going to say chance. You have a chance that you might make money. You have a chance you might lose money. So what happens here is people mess this up all the time because they think, okay, I know the rule of 100 and I'm 48. I should have 48% of my money safe and 52 at risk or something close to that. But where they mess up is they mess up right here. What is safe? What is safe? Well, let me tell you. Here's what's safe. You ready? CDs. Government bonds. Not government bond funds, government bonds, buying the bonds themselves. Actually, treasury bonds, 10-year treasury bonds, savings bonds are safe, inflation-protected bonds. Fixed annuities are safe. Guess what? That's about it. There isn't a whole lot more where you cannot lose your principal, where your principal is truly protected. Everything else, you can lose money. So remember this, you got the rule 100. Remember, when you're using the safe component, pick the right tools.
Let's talk about retirement income. Studies show that a large number of retirees are worried about running out of money. Broken promises from banks, Wall Street, and the folks in Washington, D.C. may have you worried about your own retirement security.
Having a predictable income stream is a key ingredient to protecting your retirement. One potential way to do that is to have your income stream based on math and not markets.
It's one more reason that now, more than ever, you need to talk to a retirement planning specialist. Why not call the number on your screen right now? We'd love to talk to you about protecting your retirement.
Hi, Michael Reese here, and you know what I found is in that critical period, the 5 years before retirement, all the way to the 5 years after retirement, in that 10-year period, I find that over and over again, Americans are making mistakes with their financial planning that, quite frankly, are easily avoided, and it really almost breaks my heart because if you make little mistakes in this period of time, you can have huge consequences. So in order to help you not make those mistakes, I've put together a simple website with some free videos from me to you to help you be smart about your planning. The website is called 3mistakes.com. It's the number 3 spelled out, THREE, 3mistakes.com. Why don't you go there today?
Let's talk about ways to protect your principal that have the potential to earn a decent return. Many of you want your money to be protected. That makes a lot of sense in today's unsettled economy. But it's difficult these days to find a place that pays you a reasonable amount of interest. It's frustrating. That's where we come in.
Ways to protect your principal with the potential to earn a decent return are available if you know where to look. We evaluate them every day.
It's one more reason that now more than ever, you need to talk to a retirement planning specialist. Why not call the number on your screen right now? We'd love to talk to you about protecting your retirement.
Okay, Birmingham, it's that time again. Retirement planning story of the week. This week we're going to talk about Robert and Felicia. Robert and Felicia are from Homewood. They actually called in to our radio show, The Financial Safari, which you can hear on the weekends on WERC at 7 a.m. and 1 p.m. on Saturdays, and WAPI at 8 a.m. and 1 p.m. on Saturdays. But they called into the radio show and they came in and they were looking for retirement planning. What they said to me was, we've been working with a broker at one of the large brokerage houses for a number of years, and we're just not sure that he's paying attention. We feel like that anytime changes get made, it's because we are calling him. And kind of the straw that broke the camel's back was they kept hearing about the bond bubble, and they heard me talking about the bond bubble on our retirement planning radio show, The Financial Safari. And I was talking about how you've got to have a strategy for this, and you need to have it in place sooner rather than later. And this was back a few months ago before we saw this big jump in interest rates. So I've been talking about this for a while, and they said, you know, we called our broker up and he said, yeah, we probably ought to sit down and talk about that. And when they came down to sit down with me, they came in to sit down with me, they said, you know, we're looking for somebody that's going to be proactive. I don't want to have to be calling him and saying, hey, I need to make changes. So we sat down and we went through our retirement roadmap review, and here's what we did. We looked at the 5 areas of retirement planning: income planning, investment planning, tax planning, healthcare planning, and legacy planning. And their story is pertinent for a couple reasons. They actually had a mortgage that they hadn't gotten paid off yet. They also had a rental house with a little bit of a mortgage left on it. Now, they were actually considering selling the rental house and investing the money. And when we looked at it, what we realized was for every $100 they had invested in the rental house, they were getting about $10 in rent. So that's a 10% yield. Now, let me be very clear with folks. I am not Rumpelstiltskin. I can't spin straw into gold. So if we're going to make decisions like this, we've got to look at the ratios. We've got to make good retirement planning decisions, because retirement planning is a whole lot about cash flow management. We've got to make sure we've got more cash coming in than we've got going out, which sounds simple, but when we make these decisions, we've got to really do the math. And so when we did the math and we realized they could sell this rental house for about $200,000, but after expenses, they were getting about $20,000 in rent. So I don't have a stock or a bond or a mutual fund or an annuity or anything else like that where I can promise them that kind of yield. So they were on the brink of making this really poor decision, and their broker had never even asked them about it. So we realized that by keeping the rental house and just paying off the small mortgage, we were going to free up a huge piece of their income flow for retirement. They also needed to solve for their health care planning, and they thought that long-term care was going to be too expensive. So we actually structured a couple of solutions that had some long-term care benefit in it, kind of as an add-on to the fact that we were getting income from it. So there were a couple of issues there that nobody had really ever asked them before, never really dug into their circumstances to understand what they needed for retirement. And when we got done with the process, they could sleep at night knowing that we had really thought through everything that could affect them and had a good plan in place. If this is the kind of in-depth planning, the amount of curiosity that you're looking for and the amount of proactiveness that you're looking for from your financial planner, give us a call and I'll set aside time on my calendar to sit down and help you do exactly the same thing for you so that you know how to best protect your retirement.
Well, there you have it. Another great example of why working with a retirement planning specialist, someone who really focuses on retirement planning, can make such a big difference in your life. You know, if you want, you can talk to your retirement planning specialist, maybe a phone call, maybe a face-to-face visit. Just call the number on the screen, make a connection. You'll be glad you did. All right, it's time to turn the page a little bit, and this week, my dog Charlie has a terrific treat for you. All All right, folks, here I am up in my office, and for Charlie's treat this week, Charlie brought me this article right here from CNBC. It's called FDIC to tighten screws on banks and require 5% leverage. And of course, the banks are acting like the world is completely ending. What's going on? Well, here's what I've done. To show you what's happening with banks, I've laid out here 100 $1 bills. I wanted to do 100 $100 bills, but I couldn't afford that, so I went with the $101 bill idea here for you. So here we go, 100 $1 bills. And what's happening here currently under FDIC rules, what happens when you give the bank your $100, they only have to take maybe one, maybe two of them and put that in the vault. The other $98 they get to lend out to, for car loans or home loans or credit cards or whatever they want to do with the money. So you can tell that's a pretty risky business, especially in 2008 when the economy tanks and all of this money starts to vanish. Well, in Europe, in reaction to 2008, they came up with something called Basel III. And Basel III said, you know what? European banks, we need to add $1. We're going to put $3 in the vault and you can lend out the other 97. Well, in this article that Charlie brought to me, what the FDIC said is they said, we don't think that's enough. Banks, we want you to take $2 more. So now we have $5. We want you to put those $5 in the vault, lend out the other 95, do what you want with it, and we'll call it a day. Well, apparently the banks have decided that the world has officially ended now because the FDIC wants them to keep 5 of your $100 in their vault and only limiting themselves to 95, using 95 of your dollars. Well, come on, I think that's a little crazy. But there you go, that's the FDIC and the banks as we see them today, courtesy of my dog, Charlie. Yeah, Charlie always brings a smile to your face, doesn't he? He has great information. Okay, before we wrap up the show, we need to answer our trivia question of the week. And remember, the question was, at what age range do you spend the most money, or Americans on average spend the most money? Answer is C, age 45 to 54 years of age. That's when we spend the most money. I know, I thought it was actually a little bit higher, but that's the answer. Okay, we've had a great show this week, folks. Hope you've enjoyed it. Remember, call the number on the screen, talk to a retirement planning specialist. Make sure you have the right person looking out for your interests. Take care, everybody.